Hi, Davis. It's good to be back with you. Really, I'm glad we can be back together this week. As I said at the end of our last session, which was, well, a week ago today, last Tuesday, um, that was some really good work you did last week. And I've been thinking about our time and where I wanted to start today. Sometimes sessions start where you just start with reporting in what's going on, maybe based upon something we did last week or just something that's fresh and what you're coming in with. Um, but it sounds like that's not where you're at today. And you even asked me, hey, Doug, where do you want to start today? I want to start with uh, a story that you introduced last week, but never fleshed it out. And I sense that because of the work that we're doing, it would be really beneficial to flesh that out. And then I would like to introduce an exercise that we can do. We'll just see how it goes, see if it resonates for you. I have an expression, if it feels right and good to do so. So we will see if it's right and good for you to do this. But I'd like to just invite you to take some time to share the story again that you introduced last week. And the key word that stood out to me was something that occurred between you and a professor when you were in grad school. So I'll let you take it from here.
Doug, it's good to be back. Yeah, last week was really helpful for me. It's interesting that you bring that up about that event that occurred in my grad school. I thought about that the next morning. I actually had a dream about it. Maybe we'll talk about that at another time. That happened actually last Tuesday night. But I've been thinking a lot about it, so I appreciate you bringing it up. I'll just briefly tell you that I had been asked by a professor for me to fill in while he was on a travel. He was traveling around speaking at different events and asked me to take his class. I spent a lot of time preparing for the class. I was an intern in a program. I guess you could say at that point I was an adjunct prof, even though I wasn't technically that. But I had a strong relationship with the professor. It was a small master's program. And it was a class of, probably 60, 70 students. It was quite intimidating for me because I'd been one of those students, and now I was in a different setting. But I took over, and we had 3 classes that went really well. I felt like they really went well. I had a lot of energy and a lot of excitement. I was getting really good feedback about it. And then one day, about halfway through, I think the class started like around noon or something, and like 12:45, the professor walks into the back of the room, didn't tell me that he was going to be coming into class. I actually, when I saw him, I thought, wow, he's not even supposed to be back from his trip. And he listened in for a while, and it was kind of intimidating. I might have projected onto him, but I felt like I was, being like reviewed for how well I was doing. And that might have been more of my stuff. But now that I think about it, I think I was just intuiting what was happening, because at one point he just stopped the class and kind of took over from the back room. And I don't even remember exactly what he said, but he put me on the spot. It just had an air of criticism in it. And, like he was testing me. It was really bizarre. I can still feel it in my body. And we're talking a long time ago. We're talking well over 20 years ago. And I just felt judged, called out, and really shamed. And he then kind of took over from the back room and started kind of teaching the material. Maybe for 5 minutes or so, and didn't ask the class for any interaction. I was having a lot of interactions with the class. He just really interrupted the whole process. Now that I think about it, or I've thought about this a lot, I mean, that was very offensive. But then what he did with the time, And I've worked with it with other therapists to try to figure out what his motivation and intention was, but I've never been able to release it. I've tried to release it. I've tried to forget about it. So that's what came up last week. And it's still a living story in my mind.
Davis, thank you so much for sharing that. Let me invite you just to take a moment here. I can see you on the screen, and I can see that clearly stirred up some difficult memories for you. Trauma gets stored in our bodies, and after, like you said, 20 some years, 25 years, it's still alive. It's alive in your memory, it's alive in your body, if you will. So kind of with that simple notion in mind, just be aware of your breath. We've done some breath exercises in the past, and just be aware of your breath. We won't go through anything today of a breathing exercise, but just be aware of your breath. Know that I'm right here with you, and I appreciate you sharing that. I don't know how many people you've shared that story with, but I feel honored that you shared it with me. What I'd like to do is to, as you fleshed out the story from our last session, I had mentioned, I think 2 sessions back, that I have a cadre of exercises that I use with clients that I work with. And I think I even mentioned one called the 3 and 3. I wish I had a better name for it, but it's simply 3 and 3. And let me explain that to you, because I never did that before. I'm going to ask you to make a self-statement, and I'll give you a context for that in a moment. This is all based upon the story that you just told. I'm going to ask you to make a self-statement. Then I'm going to ask you to hold silence for up to, let's say, 10, 15 seconds. Then I'm going to ask you for the second time to make the same self-statement. It's a statement of declaration. It many times is not what you've experienced. It might be something even beyond your imagination that you ever could really experience in your life, to believe about you, to feel about yourself. So sometimes it's a bit of a reach, and so that's part of what can come from the exercise. So you make a self-statement, you have in a moment 15 seconds of silence, you make the statement again, followed by another 15 seconds. You can even count those off if you'd like, not count them out loud, but to count them quietly. Kind of back when we played touch football as kids, we would do the Mississippi 1, Mississippi 2, Mississippi 3. You can do that because in the silence between these self-statements, the goal is not for you to make anything happen. Really, the goal of this exercise is just to do the exercise, and then we'll see what comes from it. So there's no pressure to make anything happen. And then you make the self-statement for the third time, and then you hold another moment of silence. This whole time, I will just be with you in this, and I'll be quiet. And at the end of that third slice of silence, I'll ask you to break the silence. I've had clients that'll just go after that 15 seconds, 10 or 15 seconds of that third silence, they just go right into wanting to debrief what happened. I've had some even change the subject and go on to something else. But I will wait for you to break the silence, and then I'll follow your lead, and we'll kind of put that together. If we debrief it, if we move on from it and return to it at another time. So I know it can feel like putting you on the spot a bit. So again, self-statement, moment of silence, self-statement, moment of silence, self-statement, moment of silence. And therein lives the 3 and 3. And this is the statement that I've written for you today. In the future, if we do this again, which I imagine we will, sometimes we'll work it out together, or you'll come up with, as you get used to this, you'll come up with your own self-statement. The one that I have for you, as I was listening to your story, I actually jotted it down. You might have noticed. I sometimes am pretty indiscreet about that, or even discreet about it. But I made mental note of it, that This was the statement that I wanted for you and believe it's a good one for you to work with in regards to the story you told. And the statement is this: I will no longer be defined by somebody else. I will no longer be defined by somebody else. Feel free to write that down so you have it in front of you. We like to make these self-statements shorter than longer so your brain can remember them. I will no longer be defined by somebody else. And so let me give that over to you, and then I'll let you pick it up and do the exercise.
Doug, thanks for introducing that. I do remember you talking about that 3 and 3. And yeah, when you mentioned it earlier and that we'd be doing some of these exercises, it maybe freaked me out a little bit, but I really have appreciated the way you're working with me. And I actually feel comfortable doing this. And the story is very alive for me. And so I understand it. So I want to move forward. So if I understand things correctly, you're just going to be present and observe. And I remember attending some men's work, and it was new language for me, but somebody said they were going to hold space for me, and I didn't know what that meant. But I think that's what you'll be doing for me. So I appreciate that. So yeah, I'm just going to get started here. I will no longer be defined by somebody else. I will no longer be defined by somebody else. I'm determined to no longer be defined by somebody else. I I hope that was okay for me to slide a word in there. It just felt like I needed to do that for myself. I hope that didn't break any rules. Please let me know if it did. Yeah, simple exercise. Just took me to a deeper place. I felt kind of heavy after maybe the first time, and in a in an odd way, I feel lighter. I feel lighter. So I look forward to us talking about this.